I zigzagged between the desert trees, grabbing what shade I could. It was hot even at 8 in the morning. Maybe Arkansas was always like this. Then again, I'd worked out for sure that there was something in the ground making it worse. Whatever heat ray seared the soil left it forever warm. Radiation? The kind of thing that could make the zombie problem go away, or get a lot worse. Didn't seem to be doing them nor me any harm for the time being. In fact, several zombies were trudging after me as I made the crossing. I quickened my pace and got to Shrine Town, where the concrete was still cool from the night. Here began a day of searching. In my low blood state, I was utterly convinced that somewhere in the town I would find some place I could be safe. I was secretly wishing to find other people. Clearly I didn't, and in retrospect I was naive to want it. Zombies, they don't really pose any threat if you're quick on your feet and don't mess around when it comes to flattening their face with a rock. People kill you at 100 paces without second thought, and when they don't, they're always going to be one burst of brain chemistry away from doing so in a situation like this. Unless they were getting just as lonely as me. Moot point. One highlight of the day searching the town was the discovery of a funeral home with the same branding as the one I'd come from, a franchise operation. It was heavily damaged, and the streets around it were stained with long faded blood. I thought it might have been the epicenter of the local trouble. Bunch of people crowded in a room with a corpse. If said corpse was to wake up in a hungry mood, could be a great place to kickstart the apocalypse. Should be thanking my parents then. Unless South Dakota escaped this madness, in which case I'd rather have died on my couch like a civilized gentleman and stayed dead. Shouldn't be ungrateful for a second chance at life, should I? Wasn't so sure as I whacked away the locals and grappled with a wild coyote until my musket coated me in dog bits. Around midday, the plane was back, buzzing south to north. Dropped a box practically on top of me. I followed the orange smoke a block or two north, reaching the edge of a residential strip. There was what I guessed used to be a park, now barren. Its central lake pond thing was still there, surrounded by benches and a few stupidly green trees. The crate was at the water's edge, nearly some bad luck, although a dip wouldn't make much difference given how sweaty I'd been getting. Opened it up, no machine gun. Christmas disappointments long forgotten suddenly rushed back. Had some new shoes, gloves, bullets, no food, and just as well since my bag was heaving with cans already. A note. I snatched the paper up and unfolded it, almost diving to the ground to get into the shade behind the crate. Unbelievable. It was a hand-drawn picture of some kind of medieval weapon, like a hammer with pointy bits. Underneath was a caption: "Find something like this. Takes real damage to kill them for a long time. Don't drink water near bodies afterwards. Can't say anything else yet. BB." Only medieval weapon I could think about was a catapult to bring that cursed plane down. I had hoped there was a little more care for me. They knew about everything, didn't they? Too busy to rescue poor old me? Or was I a zombie as far as they were concerned? No way I could work it out then. Walked up and down nearby, stressing out. Got myself pretty mad, which ended with the whole crate bobbing in the pond, and me soaked up to my stomach. It was nice and cool in there, which helped. Suddenly I realized I was screwed if the zombies were to come surround the water, so I got out. Still had the whole park to myself. Decided to sit for a while. Looking at the trees on my peaceful lunch break, I realized something. If this drama had begun a year back, then the heat ray treatment must have come during the previous winter, such that the trees all got their leaves back for the current summer. So at least halfway through the mess, some serious organized resistance remained. Government satellites, maybe? Same thing that was telling Overlord BB Hassan that I was beating people with a stone club in an upmarket neighborhood in Apache? Was that Shrinetown's real name? Can't remember. In the afternoon, I found the edge of the desert. Turned a corner in Shrinetown and suddenly the greenery returns. Essentially the east side of the town was spared whatever treatment that was, and was instead in the early stages of being overgrown by runaway hedges and street-side weeds. I preferred it. east end of town had another gun store. Just a small place, but I put a good few hours into searching every nook and cranny. Obviously I was pretty late to that party, and the place was just as empty as the one on the west side. This wasn't my first rodeo though. After clearing the place of unlife, I started moving all the ceiling tiles aside. Such a natural place to hide your little retirement fund before the masses finish looting the shopfront. Yep, there it was, a steel toolbox hidden on a rafter. It feels so nice to be good at your job. I heaved it down, practically dropping it to the floor, and with it came something big and sharp, almost skewering my foot. I moaned at the injustice of it all. It was a big, medieval-looking weapon, a long handle with a navy blue spike fixed on the end with bits of a vice. I couldn't be seen dead with it. Look, I understand it was a dangerous situation, but I blamed Bibi Hassan for most of it by that point, and I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of finding out I did anything resembling following their stupid, condescending advice. Perhaps I knew in the back of my mind that there must have been a reason why the powers that be were neither solving the situation nor letting me out of it. I think I assumed such a reason would be nefarious enough to hate it all the same. More on that much later. In the box was a much shinier version of the local specialty, the musket, so that was something. Plenty more ammo and such, more than I had space for. Staring at it, I realized something. The projectiles were ball bearings, BBs. Now there's a fun clue to ponder over a cold can of protein. By then it was coming up on 7 in the evening. Time to decide where I lived now, or make a dash back to the rotting comforts of Promise Motel. I started looking around a few corners in the area in a last-ditch effort to find a massive, everything-proof castle with a private pool and helipad. Yep, that's when I saw one. Not kidding. At the east end of town was a big straight road heading north. Standing on the barrier in the middle, I could just about see where it went. Little more than a silhouette in the distance, 2 tower blocks. That was it. Safety, visibility, and one step closer to sticking a big medieval spike through Bibi Hassan's smug face. Was too far to reach for sure, but I set off all the same, driven by excitement, desperation, and whatever effect a diet of canned meats from years gone by was having on my brain. Weaved through cars up the big road heading north. Loads of them had been on fire at one point or another. Heat ray? What even was a heat ray? The area north of town was heat rayed as far as the eye could see, which wasn't very far in all fairness. Lost sight of the towers as darkness fell. Although if I stuck to the road it was still the right direction. Had a flashlight but tried not to use it much. Came to a 2-story parking lot with a sign, Arrowhead Market. No lights on inside. Decided to check in for a rest since it was nearly midnight. Broke into a ticket office using a handy fire axe, then roughly reboarded the door. A zombie came up to the booth to make an inquiry, got a musket shot through the face. It was a panicked move, one that gave away my location. Led to some less than perfect sleeping conditions, as I could hear zombies wandering in and out of the parking lot all night, searching around the place. No one knocked on the door, and I grabbed an hour or 2 of rest. Surprisingly, it made a big difference. Climbed out the window about 4, feeling energized. Might have been because I was closer to my destination than I thought. No more than an hour's hike to the center of the little city of Arrowhead with its 2 massive towers, promising the literal high life. Had a few 5-story buildings around it, but generally the rest of the city was just cheap lots and stores I'd never heard of. Strip club 1 minute's walk from the bank, and 2 minutes walk. Think I saw one 10 minutes back towards the parking lot too. Well, someone here had money to spend on it all, and they probably lived right there in the 2 massive citadels I was staring at. Both had pieces missing high up. It was like a war zone. The bases were surrounded by fallen rubble, and the insides of the upper floors looked like a grey open wound. Lower down, all was good though. Not even a smashed window. Kind of looked like whatever exploded it was from the inside out, by the bend of the exposed rebar. Was this really a better choice than the motel? It had to be now. A few steps led from the road to a set of 4 unassuming doors, hastily installed by the looks of it. They were all open. Don't mind if I do. Inside was an open-plan lobby with a square reception island in the center, surrounded by stairwells, elevator shafts, and little shops. Oh, and a few zombies. I had taken exactly one step through the door before I fired the musket for the first time. Had 40-some cartridges, a fire axe, and a sledgehammer I dragged over from a construction site a block back. There was a big message painted on some red panels surrounding a seating area. "Crazy Jake was right, sir," it said. That was the guy BB said to not listen to. Couldn't wait to hear it. Upstairs then? Wasn't that easy. The elevators were dead, as you might guess. No ladders in the shafts. Stairwells were some places blown up, other places locked off with thick steel security doors. Couldn't go higher than the second floor. There were 13 floors listed in the lobby. Here's the good news. On the second floor, which was really just the gallery around the upper part of the lobby, I found a little book counter where someone had fought it up. Must have been a security guard or something, although his clothes were ripped to shreds at this point. Having a sledgehammer remove his jaw probably didn't get me any closer to knowing. But he had this electric baton that charged up when you shook it, then let out a little static shock. There were some hungry birds of prey nesting in the ceiling that were cooked in an instant when I batted them away. Taking a closer look, they seemed pretty undead as well. Interesting, since whatever the infection was, it didn't do much to the coyotes and wild game having a great time in their new world out there. Great way to spread it though, birds. Government kill birds, secret project maybe. I had all the theories. Crazy Jake was about to have some competition. I was determined to keep going up. In fact, I was determined to make the whole damn tower mine. Might as well live a little dream, right? Well, really thought it would be easy. Probably would have been easier to take over the tower before the locals bit the bullet and spat it back out again. This place was gonna make me work for every meter closer to God I went. Started by cutting off pieces of the shop fronts in the lobby to make ramps in the stairwell, traversing the parts of the concrete steps that had been blown to pieces. No accident that, as I was about to learn. Made my way up to the third floor. Could have just kept ramping up to 4, but part of the tower takeover plan was to feel safe. That meant there was going to be one person in this tower, me. So I hammered open the door to the third floor and shouldered the musket. I'll just kill them all, was what I was thinking. Yep, dumb, I know. I presumed the red mist wasn't really going to get inside, and was planning on going around cutting up all the bodies beyond reanimation. This was back when I thought the whole project would be over in like an hour, and I'd have all the time I needed. Didn't really go like that, which was clear after it took me 20 minutes just to pass through a bunch of office cubicles close to the stairwell. The way was clear, but zombies were lurking absolutely everywhere. I was a lot less commando than I thought I'd be about half an hour before. Even after you've iced 100 of the things, seeing them up close makes you want to bolt. Anyway, I was fine, running away whenever they started shuffling at me, and systematically shooting them down. Shock stick made them shiver and fall over. Perfect time to bring the hammer down. Don't get me wrong, I really was a killing machine, just not the scourge of the gods that my 2 hours of sleep left me imagining. I killed my way around to a hole in the wall at the front of the building, which led out onto the roof over the entranceway. The area was surrounded by sandbags, military-looking crates, and some serious military-looking zombies. No doubt about it, they blew those stairs to keep the zombies out. Guess the bacteria didn't use the stairs though, as they were stamping towards me right away. Fired the musket. Ping. These guys had helmets and armored jackets on. Fake gunpowder wasn't going to cut it, literally. Backed away and nearly fell into the street below. There's an idea. I ended up standing on a narrow ledge that wrapped around the outside of the building, which the zombies were happy to follow me onto. Once they got close, I kind of shoved them about with the sledgehammer, sweeping them to the side a little. One wrong step and they tumbled off, and walking wasn't their forte. A heart-racing encounter, given that I was hardly better by that point, needing food, rest, and a reason to believe I wasn't going to die before I found another half-decent bed. Well, things actually improved after this. I went over to the position those soldiers had manned. No guns, yet plenty more bullets in their supply locker. There was another gap in the wall close by that led to a room where the ceiling had collapsed. It formed a rough slope that I could scramble up to ascend another floor, might even have been two. I came out in another office, a little more spacious than the previous. Generously sized cubicles lined the outside of the building, and in the middle was a closed-off kitchen area with serving windows. Didn't even let them leave the building for lunch, huh? A load of office jockeys were still around. Killed them easier than those downstairs. Then I went into the kitchen. A fellow was trying to get out through a locked door. My hammer unlocked the door for him, and the stun stick ceased his rowdy complaints. Dragged him out and closed the door. The kitchen lights were on. Some of the appliances too. I knew straight away I was going to have to collapse there. It took me about 4 hours in total to get there, and I was absolutely exhausted. Plus it was day 9, mist day. Closing the door and serving hatch would create my own little safe room. The place had some food, some chairs I could bust up to make a fire, and something far more interesting. On a counter was a stack of colourful boxes. Bullets. Beside them, a shiny duo of steel pipes with a weathered wooden stock. Double-barreled shotgun, sawn off for style. Yes, please. Now I felt safe. Combining the soldier's stuff with the stash in my bag, and a few shells on the counter, I had 180. That's a lot of snapped-off heads. Had never fired something like this before, although it wasn't too different to a musket. Put a shot in, pull the trigger. Higher success rate, higher damage, higher chance of killing a zombie so hard they don't get back up after a nap and wander off for some R&R when you're not looking. So happy I almost forgot to eat. Closed up shop, did my stuff, and fell asleep real easy against the wall, head resting on a bit of couch I ripped off from the boss's fancy cubicle. Shotgun slept with its head on my knee. There, Shotgun, you're not alone anymore. Neither of us are.